Thank you for having me. My name's Nicholas. I'm a user of Liquidsoap, and I guess let's get into it, and I can talk more about how I'm using it and what kind of ideas the freedom of Liquidsoap affords me. So today's agenda, I want to shout out that I've been able to implement some Liquidsoap encoding and archive recording with WHIV LPFM here in New Orleans, a local social justice-oriented radio station. So I'm very thankful that the technology and the skills that I've kind of picked up in this community have a direct application for my local community. Something else I want to talk about is an extension of the project I talked about last year. So I'm running a radio station called turbozone.org for some friends of mine. We have a kind of like a music collective, and this is a place where we share our music with others in a more synchronous fashion. So instead of individuals listening to Spotify, we have a community listening to this music that we've put together. That's going to lead me into a piano capture project that I've been working on over the last few days. And again, every time I have the opportunity, I want to say thank you to the developers who have created this software, just because of the impacts that I've been able to experience. So 102.3 WHIV FM is a social justice radio station here in New Orleans, and I was kind of made aware of them. You know, I had been aware of them, but a friend of mine, his uncle hosts a radio show, and there's kind of questions about, well, how do I get archives and things like this. So in work with the station, I was able to find an opportunity to do some stream encoding and some archiving. For the community here, this is just a shout out to say that Liquidsoap is in place. You know, these scripts are, you know, some of the most simple textbook examples of like capturing an audio stream from an external sound source over a USB audio interface and then just shooting it straight up to IceCast. The WHIV FM radio station is part of the Pacifica network, and that's who the IceCast hosting is provided by. So I really like this project just because the WHIV FM instance in particular, because it's an example to show real world application, and I'm using commodity hardware. So there were, you know, old desktops just laying around, and I'm using, if you're familiar, one of those Behringer UCA 202s. It's like a, you know, $20 audio interface, and the results are phenomenal. You know, extremely reliable uptime for the simple stream encoder and the archiver. So that's just a quick success story. So this, I've adapted a lot of my slides from my presentation from last year. So if you're curious about this, that's a good talk worth listening to. But I just wanted to use the same slides because this presentation is an extension of the things I had said last year. So my friends have this ethical music collective, Rough Cuts. That's kind of the ethos, is that, you know, better done than perfect, right? So we're kind of making things and sharing them. We're sharing MP3 files of music that's being created. But you know, some of this stuff you didn't want to commit to the kind of overhead of a Spotify release or this kind of stuff. So it allows you the ability to drop things in and share. The infrastructure at the time, I'm running Liquidsoap. I've got some playlists, and I'm switching in between all of the different source types, using switches and some scheduling. This is running on a DigitalOcean droplet. I'm running an HTTP server. I've got IceCast. I got Liquidsoap on there. This was a screenshot of the script from last year. Very little change.
Nicholas, I don't think we're seeing your presentation.
I can see it.
No, I see it too. No, it's only you, Roman, I think.
I'm good?
There you go. Yeah.
Yes, you're
Okay.
good.
Yeah. So again, you know, I'm not doing anything special or kind of, you know, this is very simple implementation of Liquidsoap as a technology, kind of outlined in the book that I enjoyed reading. And, you know, I like this exposure that I'm able to provide this technology. Initially, I was using this personally, but I was able to share this in service of my friends and now in service of a local radio station. With the context of my friend's band, the discussion that I was having last year was the radio station as an artifact. So instead of a musical group putting together a release, you know, a CD release or some kind of physical distribution, you know, there are different ways that you can tailor the way that you're sharing your work and what that work entails. So to me, you know, maybe I'm not participant as a musician in this community at this time, but I still have I still leverage my knowledge and share my ability to amplify that and in different environments now. But kind of jumping into like where this has turned this year. So the idea of infrastructure as art or the medium is the message. I'm in as much as, you know, radio is the support of music or ideas or sharing, you know, talk or knowledge or this kind of audio or multimedia streaming. We've got this radio station TurboZone and we're trying to grow. So something I'm always thinking about is how do I add additional shows? But putting together DJs and this kind of stuff is difficult. And part of our context is we're trying to focus on our own independent composition so that we don't have, you know, reliance on kind of copyright issues and these kinds of things. If it's all our own work by permission of the artist, we have a lot of freedom to do what we want. So something I've been thinking about for some time is these ideas of like purpose-built devices. And I had done in the past experimented with a piano and a guitar capture, but that's something that I have kind of made a little bit more mature over the last week or so. And I want to pause here just because I was struck by some of the things that Roman was saying in his intro this morning. I'm hearing a call for growing the community, learning more about the user needs, and adding contributors. So opportunities like this to share the work that I've done. I'm trying to involve others. So, you know, I think I wrote about it last year, but I think that, you know, getting young people who are learning computer science, I have a background as a high school and college level teacher. Like that's the kind of stuff where generating projects like these, I think, helps to spread Liquidsoap in its users and use cases and helps us learn more about the ways and the things and the intuitions that people have about the technology. But I think the actual work of spreading that is something that I'm interested in doing. So just responding to that and saying I'm thinking about it and thinking of ways to disperse this on another generation of people. So this is what leads us to the piano capture exercise. So what is it? So I have a piano in my house, you know, some people do, and this is an instrument that I like to practice, but I don't find the opportunity to do so as much as I would like. Because sometimes if you're just playing for yourself, it's very easy to noodle, and if you don't have the pressure of a performance or anything like this, it's easy to be exploring goallessly, which can be fun, but if you want to develop, you have to have some intent and consideration. So I'm capturing these kind of ideas, the idea of maybe an audience, if there's people in the room with you or even, you know, listening to your piano over the internet, how can you do that? And then the idea of an ephemeral performance. So when I sit down to practice at my piano, is it important that this is captured? Is this important that this is streamed out to the world? You know, am I kind of using my instrument as a diary experience or some kind of larger global performance afforded to me by the proliferation of technology and the internet, right? And then thinking about all of these things, if I'm capturing raw data or have the ability to stream these things to the world, well, what else can I do with this technology? So I'm building a system and I'm trying to create different kinds of artifacts and experiences and thinking about, well, you know, we have this shared conception of radio, but people use the radio in many different ways, right? You know, emergency broadcast or entertainment. You know, there's many different reasons and ways to explore this medium, and I think even define and redefine this medium. So that's part of the excitement that I get from Liquidsoap. So more about piano capture. So what the project is at a high level is I'm listening to the piano. I'm recording the sounds generated by the instrument. I'm uploading those recordings to archive.org, and I've got a link. Perhaps they'll have a way to capture it. But if you go on archive.org and search for that item name, that's what you will find. And then the generating show and scheduling on turbozone.org, we'll talk about that in a moment. And I know I'm going to hit on time, but I'm just going to keep moving. So this is just a quick graphic of like kind of what my setup looks like roughly. So the piano in question is a Yamaha CP70. The only reason that model is important is just because I like it. It's an acoustic piano that has like a guitar pickup. So it has like a line out. So I'm able to capture, yes, thank you for the link. So I'm able to capture the output of the piano directly without having to use a microphone or anything. And I'm using an original M box. It's an old, from the early 2000s audio interface, bus powered, which is what I like, so I don't have to have an additional power supply. And I'm using a Raspberry Pi 4. So the audio interface and the Raspberry Pi are sitting on top of my piano. I would have used a real picture of my environment, but my home is messy. So please appreciate this demo. So kind of that's just like a list of the technology that I'm using. So the CP70 is the sound source. It goes line out into the audio interface, and it's listening on the Raspberry Pi. So I did intend to have a kind of a better demo, but I'm just spreading awareness at this time. So what is currently working? So what is currently working is that I have a Liquidsoap script that is listening to that input. So I've got an input also just kind of listening to that audio interface. When it detects that a sound has come through the piano, it initiates a file MP3 output. Once the blank is detected again, it shuts down that file output, and then I have a scheduled Python script that captures those MP3 files and will automatically upload those to the archive.org item for this collection, for this project. So what is my next step once I'm doing that? I want to create why not a .lick? Oh yeah, very good. Well, I think part of the discussion that we're finding today is like there are certain things that just make more sense to handle, externally or using different libraries accessible in different ways. So the next step that I intend to do is to create a radio show. So I've got this turbozone.org. It's my kind of like my local personal community radio station. So my intention is to capture all these clips, these little performances of piano of different length, download them to 2 separate folders, a recent show or a random show. So what will be generated is a 1 hour long kind of like mish or concatenation of all of these clips, and each, as it transitions, crossfades from each script, or from each clip rather, it will announce using text-to-speech based on the file name or some other metadata. Oh, this clip that you're currently listening to was recorded on date and time, and kind of in that robotic voice. So the idea here is that you've got this radio show that is composed of what were otherwise ephemeral little, personal piano moments, and that's kind of an idea of what I'm exploring. So, long story around, that's kind of my use case of Liquidsoap. And again, I wish I had kind of a better this hurdle here, right here, I think is going to be interesting, and I'm excited to share those results, but that's kind of where I'm at. Randomly generating clips of recent shows and then random shows, and then using Liquidsoap to do the audio ducking so that you've got that text-to-speech, that kind of multi-tracked audio. So that's kind of my next area of exploration. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for this work. Not working for... No, that should be working. Stand by and detect piano fun. So one other thing about the script that's currently listening, like I have local to my house a 24/7 stream out of that input. So MP3 files are recorded when no noise is detected, and they are trimmed when the silence occurs, but that stream that is being listened is continuously available. So I'm kind of in this phase right now of trying to capture as much as possible and to kind of route it in all of these different places. And that's the fun of a project like Liquidsoap, is that I have the opportunity to do all of these different things with that data, with those captures. And obviously the idea kind of past this is to implement this in other ways. Can I use the same concept for like a guitar looping pedal kind of radio station, or radio show? So that's kind of the exploration that I'm doing. Again, thank you to everyone, the developers, the other presenters, and my friends and listeners. I love Liquidsoap, and I look forward to sharing more.